Hello students, good morning everyone. Welcome back. This is Priya from Alpha International CBSE School, Bahur. Student, we are counting on you to make this your best experience in e-learning. And we are here to support you in every step of the way. And for the students, for you who are returning to the school back this academic year, and we are glad to have you back to continue your journey in this e-learning session. And for those students who have not attended last class, or for those who are attending this class, this session, and we encourage you also, we encourage you to make the most of your time to engage with our e-learning activities, right? And this experience will be like what you make it, and these opportunities we will get very low, right? And as we are starting today's session, I want you to encourage you to get involved, to participate in learning with all the dates and names whatever I am teaching. Understood, children? So supporting you is central to our mission at our Alpha International CBSE school. So let us rush into the lesson now. Okay, children? The first topic of today's session is the aristocracy and the new middle class. Aristocracy, a class of persons holding exceptional rank and privileges, especially the hereditary nobility. Middle class. After feudalism came to an end in Europe, a new class of men came to the forefront of the society, the middle class. They were the trading class, the mercantile and the business class and the professionals. Children, while discussing about the aristocracy and the new middle class, the aristocrats means they were the rich class that was in dominating class, like the rich people used to dominate the lower class people, right? In the same sense, aristocrats belong to the rich class, which are the dominating class in Europe. The members of this society had a common way of life. These members, like this aristocracy members, they will be having some common ways in their lives. They were the owners of estates in the villages and also big houses. It means like they will be having so much property, and they will be the owners of estates in the villages, and also they will be owning big houses. They spoke French, and their families, what they spoke? They spoke French, and their families most of the time had matrimonial alliances. Matrimonial alliances means what? Regarding marriage issues, right? However, this group was small in number. This aristocracy group was very small, very few in number. Understood? The major population comprised of peasants. So the western part of the land was formed by tenants and small owners, whereas the eastern part of the land, and the land in Central Europe was cultivated by serfs. And during this time period, during those periods where the aristocrats and these middle class people were living, during those periods in Europe, the western parts and Central Europe experienced industrial growth. What growth? Industrial growth. Economically, okay? Economically, they showed growth. In which parts? Western parts and Central Europe. There was growth of many towns, and a group of commercial classes emerged on the scene. So, during the 19th century, new social groups came into the being. Which century? During the 19th century only, a new type of social groups came into existence. Okay. They were a working class population. What population? They were working. The middle class people will always like a working class. Okay, they come under the working class population. And the middle class is made up of industrialists, businessmen and professionals. Right? Yes. The idea of nationalism grew stronger. Which grew stronger? The idea of nationalism grew stronger among these. These were the educated. What? They were educated, liberal middle class groups. And till now, till today, we have discussed, till what we have discussed that people in different parts of Europe want to have different nationalism in their countries. As there was a very few number of aristocracy people, the middle class people, they started emerging and they started working, and they are made up of industrials, businessmen and professionals, and they were well educated, started being educated. Okay. So as we have discussed all these things, that people in different parts of Europe wanted to have different nationalism in their countries. Here the question arises again. In the last session what we have discussed, there also we have ended with question, right? The same way here the question arises as to what exactly do we mean by liberal nationalism. We have discussed about nationalism and how the idea of nationalism grew and what are the consequences, everything we have decided, right? Discussed everything. But what is nationalism and what is liberal nationalism? So in the next slide, we are going to discuss detailedly about the liberal nationalism. It means, what exactly do we mean by liberal nationalism? Understood, children? Yes. Here comes, what did liberal nationalism stand for? As we had ended the last slide with a question like what exactly do we mean by liberal nationalism, here comes the answer for that liberal nationalism. Okay, let us see what did liberal nationalism stand for. Liberal nationalism stood for many things: individual freedom, equality before the law, representative government and constitution, as well as the inviolability of private property. So, liberal nationalists in the economic sphere. Let us see liberal nationalists in the economic sphere. Number 1, liberalism stands for freedom of markets. They wanted to remove all restrictions of state on the movement of goods and capitals. Okay. Second point, Napoleon's regime had created different currencies, weights, measures and customs duties for each state. Liberalists wanted a unified economic territory. A customs union from Prussia that was joined by many German states removed all tariffs and reduced the currencies from 30 to 2. How much it was reduced? From 30 to 2. Only 0.2, right? The last point, the economic nationalism and unification further contributed to the nationalist sentiments. Children, when we are discussing about the liberal nationalism, what is it standing for? It is like during the early 19th century. We are discussing about 19th century only, right, in the Europe. During the early 19th century, the idea of nationalism and liberalism were closely related to the Europeans. What were related to the Europeans? The idea of nationalism and liberalism. These are the two concepts which became very close to these Europeans. The word liberalism is derived from the Latin word liber. This word liberalism is derived from the Latin word liber. Liber means free. Free, F-R-E, free. In Europe, the new middle class saw liberalism as freedom for the individual and equality of all before the law. So, freedom means freeing themselves, like liberalism, they kept the name from the Latin word which is the meaning like, which is a synonym of free. And those people in Europe, the middle class saw liberalism as freedom for the individual and equality of all, right? They all stressed for the government elected by the people. Since French Revolution took place, the term liberalism has taken shape into a new meaning, the end of the autocracy and clerical privileges. Before that, they will be using the term liberalism, but it means they are not at all free in Europe. Okay, they used to get stressed by the government. They are under the control of the government, elected by the people, and they have to, even though they are willing or not willing, they have to follow those some idiotic decisions also. But when the French Revolution took place, the term liberalism has taken shape into new meaning, like the end of autocracy. This rich people's domination has come to an end. It also means that framing up of constitution and formation of government through parliament. And 19th century liberals also laid stress upon the right to property. What did the century liberals laid? It also laid what? Stress upon the right to property, the rights for property. Though people were granted with equality before the laws, even though people were equally maintained, they have equality, still right to vote was not granted equally to the citizens. They don't have rights to vote for the selection of elections for for votings. So they don't have right to vote, and they were not granted equally. It is not, the permission was not granted equally to all the citizens. Even in France, when French Revolution took place, not only in Europe, even in France also, when the French Revolution took place and people were granted the right of equality, there also they had granted right for equality, and here also right of equality before the law was there. But the right to vote was not given to anyone, even there or here. They don't have any right to vote. Only the men with property had the right to vote. It means rich people, a person, an individual who are having, that also they are particularly saying men, a male who is wealthy enough, well and good enough in wealth. When he is rich, then only he will be having a right to vote. Men without property and women were excluded from this. It means women don't have any right to vote, and the men, gents, males who are not having the property, they also will not have any permission, they will not be granted to vote. They will be excluded, they will be removed from this. It was only for a short period. It doesn't exist for long period, only for short period under Jacobins, that all adult men with or without property enjoyed right to vote. When the Jacobins club started, within no or soon after, when it started, soon after, all the adult men with or without property, the men, even though if he is having property or not having the property, they can vote. They had the right, they enjoyed the right to vote. Later on, when Napoleon came into the power, Napoleon came into the power and he introduced Napoleonic Code in 1804. This fellow introduced a code called Napoleonic Code in what year? In which year? 1804. It means the right of suffrage was limited back to few members of society. Again, the rights were limited only for the few members. Again, there are some partialities maintained. Under this code, women were taken as minor. Women was taken as minor, even though they have age, they were taken as minor, and they were subjected to the authority of fathers and husbands, as if woman has no power, as if woman has no brains, like they are not intelligent. They used to feel like that, and they used to suppress them, like treating them as minor, and they have to be under the guidance of fathers or under husbands. So they had no right to it. There or here, whoever ruled, a new person or old person, whoever comes and goes, always women used to face this, and women will be excluded and they will not have any right to vote. This led to various movements by women, and non-propertied men demanded equal political rights. All these issues, all these things created problems between the women, because the women are feeling like they are being suppressed, they are being stamped under the male domination and the aristocracy domination. And the men also who is not having property, it means the poor people, the men with no wealth, they also felt the same thing. And at last these women and these men without property, they started demanding equal rights. They started fighting. They started stressing. They started demanding for their rights. They were asking, they were requesting that they also need the equal rights what the other people were having. Understood? And according to the business point of view, according to the business point of view, liberalism mean to be freedom of markets. So according to the business point of view, liberalism means, it meant like it is to be the freedom of markets and abolition of various types of taxes and the movement of goods and capitals. So this is what the liberalism meant. The freedom of markets and abolition of state imposed restrictions was a huge demand made by the new middle classes. And to understand this, we should take the example. We should, if we want to understand this concept, what liberalism meant there, like freedom of markets and abolition, we have to take an example of German. Like, to understand clearly, we should take the example of German speaking regions in the first half of the 19th century. It means in the first half of the 19th century, there were many people speaking German. There were about 39 princely states in this region during the first half of the 19th century. How many states? 39. And each state had its own currency and weights and measures. There will not be any common weights and measures like these nowadays what we are measuring with weights and inch tapes and all. Those will be differing. If they are having 39 states will be having different types of weights, different types of measures, and even the currency also differs between them. So if a trader was traveling from Hamburg to Nuremberg, if a businessman wants to travel from this place to that place in those days in 1833, if he want to sell his goods, he had to pay a custom duty of 5% at 11 custom barriers. It means there will be 11 barriers between them, and he has to pay 5% in those 11 barriers. Why? Because he is traveling and he want to sell his goods in the other state. It is a type of loss for him also. Duties were levied according to the weight or measurement of the goods. If here the weights and measurement is more in this state, when he is traveling and when he is going to the other state, there it might be whether less or more. If it is showing very less, his taxes, the percentage he paid in those barriers and the weight differences, everything will result in a huge loss for that traders. Okay, so it took a lot of time to calculate the duty. They have to calculate with those, these kind of the type what they are following and those weights and measures which they are following, and they used to sit together and calculate. It took a lot of time to sort out. Okay, and another example, the cloth was measured in L. The cloth was measured in LE, which was different in each region. The cloths we will be measuring here like meters, 2 meters. See, we are measuring with meter tape, right? Like that they used to measure in LE, and it was that also will be different in each regions. In all the states it differs. At Frankfurt, the tax was charged less than the LE. At Frankfurt, the tax was charged less than the LE, and there was less, whereas the tax charged at Nuremberg was more. So when they are measuring in LE, the tax was as less as LE, and sometimes it will be very more because of the LE. Because the LE there was more as compared to the other regions. So children, this is what we are just discussing about all this, what is liberalism mean. See the changes and the differences between the peoples and their opinions and the things, products, what they are using. And all this led to the demand of creation of unified economic territory by the various business classes. Is it or not? A common people, if we are a common people, we will be buying some things in a local and we will be having, and we used to stay at home and work together, right? But a business person means they will be going to other places for purchase, or they will be going to other places to sell their goods, right? So it is a main problem, caused a very big problem for the merchants, all these traders, traders like business people. And that is why this group of business people started demanding the government to create a common economic territory means which is related to the money based thing. So they started demanding for the unified common economic territory, so that there could be smooth movement of goods, people and capital from one region to another. No problem if they will be sending here and there and they will be selling goods, whatever it may be. The measurements and the currencies, everything will be same, right? There will be no problem for all the states even, right? Yeah. This demand results in the formation of custom union. What is it? Custom union. They have formed a custom union or Zollverein. These demands led to this formation. And the demand for the Zollverein, the demand for Zollverein was first made by Prussia. Who made it first? This demand was first made by Prussia. Later on, German states also joined Prussia with the same demand. Like they want to have some common economic territories, and that formation was called Zollverein. Later on, Germans also joined Prussia. The custom union abolished the tariff. The custom union abolished the tariff barriers and reduced the number of currencies from 30 to 2. Railways were developed. So that the economic interest to national unification. The economic nationalism too strengthened. The economic nationalism also strengthened the nationalist sentiments during that time. While so many changes were taking place in Europe, one more thing also happened. What is the thing? All this happened, right? Railways, transport facilities, currencies, weights and everything. Though there are so many ups and downs, and finally they have come to some conclusion to maintain the unified thing, right? Even then, one more thing also happened in Europe. What is that? That made governments to work together towards the philosophy of conservatism. These changes were taken place in Europe. What thing happened was that it made governments to work towards the philosophy of conservatism. Conservatism means what? It is a political view that favors free enterprise, private ownership and social conservative ideas. What is conservatism? Listen carefully children. Conservatism. So conservatism means it is a political point of view in the government view which is favoring, which is helping for free enterprise like private ownership, the small businessmen, private or not only government people or aristocracy people, even whoever wants to do business and be they, I mean they are improving, developing themselves. This conservatism is a political view that favors them for private ownership and socially conservative ideas. Okay, children. I think now you understood this is what liberal nationalism stand for, what all they were having and for what they were fighting and finally what they had received. And for this we have given the term like we have placed a question there like what did liberal nationalism stand for? Understood, children? A new conservatism after 1815. The conservatism that reigned in Europe after 1815 found support in the monarchy, aristocracy and the church. In 1815, representatives of the European powers, Britain, Russia, Prussia and Austria, who had collectively defeated Napoleon, met at Vienna and drew up the Treaty of Vienna in 1815 with the object of undoing most of the changes that had come about in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. Treaty of Vienna are these assumed powerful positions in restoring Europe and were determined to hold on them. The major threats to the newfound stability, although muted in 1815, which year? 1815, were the concerns deriving from the revolutionary years. The most powerful of these were liberalism and nationalism. So children, let us see what was that incident that brought the philosophy of conservatism. Like here it goes, when I have concised that part like the new conservatism, let me explain it detailedly now. So listen carefully. Napoleon Bonaparte. So Bonaparte, don't read it as Bonaparte. Okay, the how to pronounce it is Napoleon Bonaparte. So Napoleon Bonaparte, who had earlier acquired major parts of Europe, he was ruling and he has acquired so many parts in Europe, right? But he was defeated. He was defeated in the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. So in the year 1815, he was defeated in that battle. And the battle was fought between Napoleon and the forces of Britain and Prussia. The battle was between whom and whom? Napoleon and the forces of Britain and Prussia. So when Napoleon was defeated, European government decided to establish conservative form of government. So the conservatives believed that established traditional institutions of state and society such as monarchy, the church, social hierarchies, etc. should be maintained as they were. Even though they had won in that battle with Napoleon, but they don't want to change the whole system of the European. This European government has decided that the monarchy, the church, social hierarchies, everything should be maintained as they were before itself and should not be changed. Understood? So most of the conservatives believed that modernization can strengthen traditional institutions like monarchy. They will be maintained the same, but modernization as our mobiles, right? We all love the mobiles, but when we are getting extra specifications, when the technology is improvising, we do like it, right? In the same way, even they believed that, what did they believe? The modernization can strengthen the institutions like monarchy, right? And they had a view that some changes can strengthen the autocratic monarchies of Europe. Let us see what are those changes. Okay, they thought that modern army, efficient bureaucracy, dynamic economy, abolition of feudalism and serfdom. We have already discussed about this, right children? So with this they have thought that it will conformly bring a change. It might attract those people. So with this point of view, representatives of the European powers such as Britain, Russia and Prussia as well as Austria also met at Vienna in 1815, and this came to be known as Congress of Vienna. Why it was known as Congress of Vienna? Because all the European powers such as the four nations and the four regions, Britain, Russia, Prussia and Austria, when they all met at Vienna, and that became as a Congress of Vienna. And these were those powers who had collectively defeated Napoleon. These are the groups which defeated Napoleon continuously. Okay, and they met at Vienna to draw up settlement for Europe. After the battle, they used to meet at Vienna. And why? To settle some issues, to settlement for Europe, right? The Congress was hosted by the Austrian Chancellor. The Congress was hosted by whom? Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich. His name was Duke Metternich, and he was hosting the Austrian Council. Okay, sorry, he hosted the Congress, and the delegates drew up the Treaty of Vienna of 1815, which reversed most of the changes that came in Europe during the Napoleonic Wars. Okay, and then they took some important decisions also. Like they took some decisions which were taken by the Congress of Vienna. When they decided to bring the changes, sometimes some of them might be reversed. Yes, they reversed most of the changes also during those Napoleonic Wars. And some important decisions which were taken by those people, a Congress of Vienna, were like Bourbon dynasty was restored to power. Bourbon dynasty was restored to power. Louis XVIII was made the monarch of France. Who is the monarch of France? Louis XVIII. And France also lost the territories. France also lost the territories, and it had acquired under Napoleon. Under whose control it was? Napoleon. And a series of states were set up on the boundaries of France. So many states were set up on the boundaries of France to prevent French expansion in future. They don't want to expand French. So they just set up some states in the borders of the France because they don't want it to expand in future. Thus, with the new arrangement, some territorial changes were seen, such as the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which included Belgium and was set up in the northern Genoa, which was added to Piedmont in the south. And children, Prussia was given important new territories on its western frontiers. Prussia, it was given the important territories, while Austria was given northern Italy. Austria was given what? Northern Italy, but for Prussia it was given the western frontiers. And on the other hand, the German Confederation of 39 states that had been set up by Napoleon was left untouched. Nobody used it. They just left that region. Okay, and in the east, Russia was given. In the east, Russia was given part of Poland and Prussia. Russia was given what? It was in the east, and they were given the Poland and Prussia to the Russia. The main aim behind this arrangement was to restore the monarchies that had been taken over by Napoleon and create conservative form of rulership in Europe. So everything in the battle they just acquired from Napoleon and they want to rule it. They want to create a conservatism between those regions, and that's why they have just divided north one side, east one side and west one side. Like that they had divided it and they were maintained by German, Austrian, Prussia, etc. Okay, just to form the conservative form of rulership. And the conservative rule formed in 1815 was oppressive. They were highly intolerant towards criticism and disagreement. And they started curbing down the activities against them. They again started activities. By whom? Against these people. Even censorship laws were imposed on newspapers, books, plays and songs that favored the idea of liberty and freedom associated with the French Revolution. Even though they had some restrictions, they had some censorship and they had some rules, right? The uniform forms. But also there was some disagreement, the people who were raising criticisms and fighting back. So whatever they can do, they're thinking it's a form of liberty. But the government did not allow that. They made the censorship, even the newspapers, whatever the books were releasing, novels were releasing, even movies, like on those days movies were not there, right? Like plays, stage plays and the songs, everything was censored, and everything should be on the idea of liberty and freedom, which is associated only with the French Revolution. But all this could not stop various liberal activities, right? Even though whatever rules they are keeping on adding, everything is not applicable. And this from criticizing the new conservative rule, and they started seeking for freedom of the press. So they felt like they can't even post whatever the reality, they can't post anything genuinely in the newspapers as it was being censored. So they started fighting for that, like they need freedom for the press first. So now we know that the conservatives had once again established the rule of monarchs in the Europe, but did it stop? Did it stop there? No. But did it stop the revolutionaries from demanding liberty and nation, whatever they are fighting with? Fought battles and we won the Napoleonic wars, and they acquired so many regions and just listed out the rules and implementing the rules, and each and everything they were monitoring and restricting. But even then, there were some who always demand liberty and nationalism, and they did not stop the revolutionaries from demanding liberty and nationalism. And how did these revolutionaries work for their right of liberty? Come on children, tell me. How did these revolutionaries worked for their liberty? So with this question, let us stop discussing about this new conservatism, because the next session we have to know, the next session is about the revolutionaries, but we have to know what is that, how did these revolutionaries worked for the right of liberty. Every time they are saying liberty, right, they are demanding for liberty and nationalism, right? Then we have to know how it worked, how they fought for their right of liberty, and what are the demands and how they were demanding, fighting for the liberty and nationalism. We have to check over this, and until then, with the same questions in the mind, let us end this session. Children, here comes the activity part. In today's activity part, we are going to give you some exercise, some workout, like you have to collect minimum 10. It is not restricted like only you have to collect 10. If you are interested, if you are more curious to know, you can collect more than 10 also. Minimum is 10, and you have to collect minimum 10 pictures which are related to the topic, like we are discussing since 2 sessions about the rise of nationalism in Europe. You can just open the internet and go in search. Just surf what all the pictures you can get regarding the rise of nationalism in Europe, but don't forget that pictures must suit to the concept which I have taught you. You must not take some whatever pictures you are getting. Just go through the PPT, and in the PPT you can see the headings of each slide, and you type those slides heading in the internet and then go in search. Select the best pictures and then post it in the WhatsApp group. Understood, children? Like for example, if you are searching for the Statue of Liberty, first you mention your name in the WhatsApp group. Below that, so look children, once you switch on the internet and start sending in WhatsApp, the other students will also send, so that your pictures and their pictures will be merged. So before sending that, don't switch on the internet, okay, without internet connection. First you open the WhatsApp, type your name, and below that, example heading, that Liberty statue, you type the statue, I mean the heading, and then post the picture. And then the French Revolution heading, you post one picture. Like that, after finishing, after posting everything in the WhatsApp, then at the last you have to switch on the internet. If then at a stage all your photos come in a sequence, so that the other students' photos will not get merged with your pictures. Understood, children? So I hope this will be very interesting for you to search, to run here and there in the net, all the websites and sites, whatever it may be. You have to search all the pictures and post. This is your task today. Understood? Yeah. Then, so with this, let me conclude this session, and tomorrow think what we are going to discuss. Actually, we are discussing about all this Europe, French, everything, right? Wars and this. But I have not finished that one. What is that? Only one part remaining in the second chapter. You just search what I am going to teach tomorrow and be prepared with the key points, so that you can check whether your ma'am is covering all the points which were given in the textbook. So this is a task which you are going to give to me, right? Okay, children. So let us have a happy day. Be safe at home, and thank you, children. This is Priya signing off from Alpha International CBSE School. Thank you, guys.